Nama Om Vishnuvadaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarini Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So thank you very much. Let's go then to page 1 from Bhagavad Gita. Okay, we got the screen share there. Thank you. I really like my setup here. I set my phone in a Kleenex box.
Oh, yes, Maharaj.
The box is half full with Kleenexes, and it's got that little slit in the middle, so it fits perfectly in there. All right. Om Jnana Timirandasya.
Om Jnana Timirandasya.
Yaranjana Shalakaya. Chakshuram Nina. Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest ignorance.
I was born in the darkest ignorance.
And my spiritual master opened my eyes. Torch of knowledge.
The torch of knowledge.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto him.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto him.
Okay, great. Thank you. So, can our host, Kadamba, or could you please let us know what shloka we're on today?
Yes, Maharaj. We are going to read chapter 16, verse number 22, Maharaj. I'm going to screen share that.
Okay.
Yes, Maharaj. Maharaj, can I just speak for a minute, Maharaj? Is that okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Very good morning. We are very, very grateful for your time and your presence here. Thank you so much. We'll be discussing from Bhagavad Gita, and we are very fortunate to have with us His Holiness Bhaktimarga Swami Maharaj. And many of us are well known to Maharaj now here because Maharaj has been coming on a regular basis. Now, for those of you who are not so familiar, just a brief introduction. For my own clarification, Maharaj has been practicing since 1973. For many of us were not even born by then. So it's almost 50 years Maharaj has been practicing and sharing the message of Bhagavad Gita in many parts of the world. Maharaj is very well known in North America as the walking monk. There are so many television interviews, newspaper articles, and also Maharaj's particular walking monk portion is also in Ontario curriculum. Maharaj is a very well-known Kirtaniya. He is an amazing Kirtan singer. Maharaj's plays are very well-known all around the world. Maharaj gives such wonderful, inspiring classes. So we are very fortunate, Maharaj. Thank you so much, Maharaj, for joining us. Please, Maharaj.
Thank you. We'll just start to see how inspiring we are. Okay, thank you so much. And pleasure to be with you all as much as we can. Okay, so we're on divine and demoniac natures. That's text 22 from this chapter 16. Etair vimuktam kaunteya tamo dvarshair dvaraish tribhir naraha acharyatmana shreyas tato yati parangatim. The man who has escaped these 3 gates of hell, O son of Kundi, performs acts conducive to self-realization, and thus gradually attains the supreme destination. Maybe we can just, I'll break up the phrases and then you can follow me. The man who has escaped these 3 gates of hell, go ahead.
The man who has escaped the 3 gates of hell.
O son of Kunti.
O son of Kunti.
Acts conducive to self-realization. self-realization.
Of norms acts conducive to self-realization.
Thus gradually attains the supreme destination.
And
Thus
thus
gradually
gradually
attains
attains
the
supreme destination.
Nice divine grace, AC, Bhaktivedanta Swami Bhagavad.
Maharaj, the voice is not clear, Maharaj.
Is that right? Okay. Not sure what I can do. Just let me know when you see
It's better now.
better now. Okay, great. Hopefully it stays that way. Okay, fantastic. Let me know. Just give me a word.
It is still not clear, Maharaj.
How about now?
Now it is slightly better, Maharaj, but initially it was very good, actually. It was very clear and loud.
Initially it was very clear and loud. Is it still clear and loud now?
Yes, Maharaj, it is a little bit better than what it was a while ago.
Okay, so one should be very careful of these three enemies to human life.
I think Maharaj, it went back to the bad one. So
Maharaj, is it connected to any speaker or any Bluetooth headphone, Maharaj?
No, it is not.
Okay, now it is okay, Maharaj. When you answered just now, it was okay. Please continue, Maharaj.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt.
I'm holding in my hand. Maybe that's the only way to do it. My Kleenex box technique doesn't work. Okay, so purport. One should be very careful about these three enemies to human life: lust, anger, and greed. The more a person is freed from lust, anger, and greed, the more his existence becomes pure. Then he can follow the rules and regulations enjoined in the Vedic literature. By following the regulative principles of human life, one gradually raises himself to the platform of spiritual realization. If one is so fortunate by such practice to rise to the platform of Krishna consciousness, then success is guaranteed for him. In the Vedic literature, the ways of action and reaction are prescribed to enable one to come to the stage of purification. The whole method is based on giving up lust, greed, and anger. By cultivating knowledge of this process, one can be elevated to the highest position of self-realization. This self-realization is perfected in devotional service. In that devotional service, the liberation of the conditioned soul is guaranteed. Therefore, according to the Vedic system, there are instituted the 4 orders of life and 4 statuses of life called the caste system and the spiritual order system. There are different rules and regulations for different castes or divisions of society. And if a person is able to follow them, somebody was trying to call me. Okay, I'll just read back a little bit. According to the Vedic system, there are instituted the 4 orders of life and the 4 statuses of life called the caste system and the spiritual order system. There are different rules and regulations for different castes or divisions of society. And if a person is able to follow them, he will be automatically raised to the highest platform of a spiritual realization. Then he can have liberation without a doubt. Thank you very much. Hope that was clear enough for everyone.
Yes, Maharaj.
Jai, thank you so much. I'm glad to hear that. All right, now, so I guess the last verse you looked at was just the one prior to this one. And what is identified as the 3 enemies or gates. Gates are usually welcome places. They're meant for people's protection. We hear about, in the Christian tradition, they talk about the pearly gates to heaven. And we also hear about gates or gateways or passageways to the spiritual world in the story of the four Kumaras, who are met by the two gatekeepers, Jai and Vijay. Jai and Vijay, where they stand there very loyally at the gateway, and they check people who are not qualified to come in to Vaikuntha, to Vishnu's abode. So 4 young boys came in. They were misjudged, miscalculated by the 2 gatekeepers. But they thought in their mind, who are these 4 young whippersnappers? Who are these young boys, unclothed, practically babies? And yet the Kumaras were previously praised by great souls. Maharaj Prithu, for instance, would bathe their feet, even though he's their senior, at least in appearance, in age. So the Kumaras were misjudged, and therefore they were cursed by the Kumaras. The Vijay and Vijay were cursed. So I'm just talking about at the gateway of heaven. We talk about gates that are important to us. Dwara, that's the name of gate, like Haridwara, which is the gateway to the abode of Vishnu. It's the foothills of the Himalayas, right? Some of you are from the south, and in India maybe didn't get a chance to go up, way up north, but in the south, I understand you do have mountain ranges. And anybody who goes up into the hills where it's a little more remote, you feel close to God. I'm in British Columbia, so we have lots of mountains. And I was at Sharnagati and yesterday, and you do feel a strong presence of God. Mind you, anybody who's living in Windsor in a nice field with maple trees around near a farm, you can also feel the same impact. Just have to get away from the cities. And the cities are places where we meet lust and anger and greed, big time. That is a fact. Kama, Krodh, and Lobh, 3 gateways to hell. So they are identified in the previous verse. And Krishna is telling us here in verse 22 that you can escape. You don't have to go through those gates. You stay away from those gates. You're not welcome. You stick to your self-realization, and then eventually you get to the Parangatim. The word Parangatim appears in the Gita and other places, such as in chapter 9. Krishna is talking about like anybody can actually reach the supreme destination, regardless of your background. Manghi Paratihipashritya, Yepi Syu Papayonia, Striya Vaishis Tata Shudras, Depiyanti Parangatim. That means that anybody, it doesn't matter what kind of background you come from, career-wise or not, doesn't matter the gender, it really doesn't. Now, let's just touch on that a little bit. These days, our tender young children, they're hearing in school about the different genders that are there. Holy smokes. One person just told me the other day they have identified 56 different genders. Well, when I was young, we heard about 2 genders, and then later on you hear about a 3rd gender, which is the Vedas recognize. Different people lumped into that category. But regardless of gender, everyone has a chance to reach the supreme destination. And it doesn't matter if you're a laborer, it doesn't matter if you're a farmer, or if you're like a high intellectual, like an Einstein or something like that. Anybody can come to Krishna's abode. But what makes you qualified is that you have to tackle this Kama, Krodh, and Lobh. For instance, if somebody is very overtaken by kama, if Cupid's always hanging around them, then he can be a nuisance. He can be a nuisance. And, I mean, for most of us, when we're young, Kamadev comes around the corner and hits us mildly or sharply. And then, we get, it's Krishna's arrangement, of course, really. And then there's a natural method whereby you make yourself connected with another human being, and she'll be ordained or consecrated by priests in what we call marriage and so on like that. And then one should try to be quite content in that relationship. I know it doesn't always work out, but we should really try to make the relationships work out. And I'm talking about something very relevant because, we see people time and time again, they fail in trying to make a marriage work. So we're really, as part of our responsibility to try as best as possible for families to stay together. And my parents, in their bedroom, they had a plaque on the wall, and it said the same famous phrase, you may have heard it, a family that prays together stays together, right? That's very true. And maybe in our context, a family that chants together dances together. Okay. So lust can be a real stumbling block for us, even after we've made commitments. If somebody pursues this area, it can really create a big, let's say, it's a big hurdle for anyone who's trying to make spiritual advancement. When it comes to krodha, anger, the 4 Kumaras, they were produced as a result of the anger we're talking about Shiva. Shiva's also sometimes called the Rudra, which means anger. And he came as a result of anger. When the Kumaras refused to get married and become grihastas. Okay, so anger is something that really stands in the way of our devotional service. I do hear sometimes in couples relationships that one of the parties gets angry. Oftentimes the guys tend to get more angry than they need to be. So that creates a real unsettling situation for the ladies who expect their husband to be a protector and to be understanding. But anybody can be angry for that matter. It pollutes your mind, You turn red. You get furrows in your between your where the third eye is supposed to be resting. You can clench your fist. Your temperature rises. You can turn different colors. We see all those kind of symptoms of anger. And when one is angry, your intelligence shuts down. It's very hard to think clearly. And then when it comes to greed, lobh. Greed is the quality of, let's say, being not content with what you have and always looking to someone else who's got something more than maybe they need, or you're feeling that someone else has something that I should possess. And so we lack in this area. I would say to a large extent, we're greedy people in North American culture and perhaps all over the world. Keep up with the Joneses, keep up with the Patels is a kind of, just the thrust for a lot of people. And so these are, again, hurdles or stumbling blockades for our advancement in Krishna consciousness. In this chapter entitled The Divine and Demoniac Natures, we look at both qualities, and there's 26 glorious qualities of the divine. And when it comes to the demonic traits, there's 6. And these are lust and anger and greed are prevalent in this category. So I guess we have to decide, are you going to be a demon or are you going to be a demigod? What kind of disposition do you want to carry? And I think everybody in their heart knows, I want to be good. I want to be a good person. I don't want people to live in fear of me. I don't want to be an agitator. I want to be someone who encourages, someone who inspires, especially in the realm of Krishna consciousness. So let's just go down a little bit to where Prabhupada is talking about what he calls the caste system. Well, when Prabhupada came to Toronto in 1976, one woman, her name was Kathy Carr, she came to represent the Toronto Star, the newspaper. And she represented media. And she was asking Prabhupada about the caste system that is prevalent in the culture of India. And Prabhupada then chose not to use the term caste system. It is derogatory terms. A lot of people have been in the past traumatized by the abuse of a caste system. So therefore, Prabhupada was trying to clarify, confirm with Kathy that we believe in what's called Varna and Ashrama, as the 4 social and 4 spiritual orders. That it was Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyas. And this is a structure established by the Lord himself. That's confirmed in chapter 4. He set up the system structure. Structures are important. We're talking about gates. When you construct something, you might have a fence. Like, let's say you're there in Windsor and you bought a new home, and you decide to have a fence around it, just to keep unwanted elements out. Or you might build a big hedge that will eventually grow. That'll sort of keep unwanted, undesirables off your property. And so that's part of structure, right? You build something, you want to protect it. So Krishna has built human society, and he put up a structure so that people can feel protected and feel a sense of belonging to a community. And so if Brahmins, who are supposed to be at the top of the ladder, act properly and provide vision for people and are thoughtful, then society can thrive. But if Brahmins, who are supposed to be the head on the social body, when they act inappropriately and selfishly, then everyone tends to follow like that. We've heard in the news, all over the world that Brahminical people, those who are in that status of life, they have abused their situation. The example, of course, is given of, like our indigenous people suffer tremendously from, from a religious system where thoughtful people, Brahminical people, were supposed to actually look after these individuals, but they were, let's say, prejudiced, and so therefore they abused the children in many dark ways. And we hear about it in many different religious communities. So it's up to the religious organizations to always maintain their integrity. Otherwise, people will just say, "Why am I following this? Where is God in all of this? Isn't God there to be my well-wisher, to be my protector?" And so on. So this is where the system falls apart. But if everyone plays their role, fulfills their dharma, then everyone will have good karma. And then we can see people can reach the supreme destination, Param Gatim. Now, when Prabhupada first started the movement, some of the first people that there were gay folks. They were homosexual individuals. And Prabhupada didn't reject them. We're going back to New York, he actually accepted them. Some of them went on to become good devotees, helpful and so on, like that. So no one should be rejected, but Krishna will reject you, or he'll say, you have to wait a little longer. If you're still overwhelmed by one of these three particular traits, lust and anger and greed, you have to do a little more chanting. You have to work, you have to work on your anger management, or you're a little bit too lusty. You got to control your senses, keep your hands to yourself. This is the saying goes, and then I will accept you. So, anyways, I just thought I'd open up to say a few things on this topic, and we can say more. But I think if any of you have some comments you'd like to make, I'd be glad to to respond, to listen to your realizations. Anybody out there?
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Thank you so much, Maharaj. So many important insights you gave it to us, Maharaj. Maharaj, my question is, when we see this word gates to hell, like it always brings the point about in a boundary there, like even in the other worlds, there are boundaries, like heaven also has gates, hell also has gates. What does that exactly mean?
Well, I think it can be taken in a metaphorical way. It just means the passageway to another world. And in the case of hell, we understand the real thing about hell is separation from Krishna. And so many of us have already passed through those gates of hell. Am I right about that? We've been living in a kind of hell, and when you come to Krishna consciousness, you go to the other side of the gates and you realize there's another world. So I think we just have to be mindful. Just like people always talk about, there's windows of opportunity, right? Doorways of opportunities. It means you go to the door, knock on the door, or press a button, it'll open for you automatically. And then from there, there's a chance for a new approach to life. So whether you want to take it that there was an actual gate made of wrought iron or something like that, or painted nice royal black or something like that, or whether you want to just talk about it in terms of, a drawbridge, with a moat around like a castle. There's crocodiles in the moat, and you can't penetrate into my protected area, which is a castle, where I have my kingdom. And we'll only let you in if you're friends with us. So then we'll open up the gates, we'll lower down the drawbridge, and we'll let you in. So in the same way, Krishna has his own abode, and it's to be protected from those who are not sincere. So if we get overwhelmed by lust and anger and greed, you can be assured that Krishna will say, I love you, but you're not quite ready yet. You're not quite, you got to do some more purging. You have to take a shower a little bit longer, maybe. Use a little better body wash. And so that's all that Krishna's trying to say. He'll never reject us. But if we maintain these lower characteristics of being lusty, being angry, being greedy, then it just means we're just not qualified. So anyways, those of you who are living in Windsor, you've got the tunnel, you've got the bridge. That's like a gateway to the US, and where gas might be a little cheaper, and you might buy some groceries over there, right?
No, not anymore, Maharaj.
Oh, it's changed, has it?
Gas prices It's not that different. Maharaj, you kindled my interest on this. I think I have to thank our Prabhuji too. I always wondered about our concept of hell, whatever, I don't know what the word we use in Hindus, but other religions seem to focus quite a bit. And if you go to Sistine Chapel in Rome, it is depicted to scare everybody to be, to follow Christianity. One of the things, you look at the picture, I said, I don't want to be there eternally. So I love your explanation.
You're talking about depictions of hell?
That's correct. Maharaj, can you expand on it? I love the way the discussion is going. Tell us a little more about our concept of hell, different from the other religions. Thank you.
Our concept of hell is described in detail in the 5th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, and I remember when those productions first came out off the press. I was in New York at the time with traveling brahmacharis from Canada, and we were starting to read the different Narakaloka, the different places of hell. And we found it to be very graphic, in greater detail than Christian depictions. Oh yeah, much more in detail. Yeah, I think it is something that might scare some people. In some traditions, that's the technique that's used, scare tactics. If you don't behave properly, this is where you'll go. Because I find people are kind of childish. I've been very surprised how grown-up men and women sometimes act so childish. So to such individuals, that might be something that will scare them into devotion. It's not the best technique to talk about God as the Lord of love. That's superior. But that causes some people to be too complacent and too relaxed. So therefore, we do hear about, and in great detail, the various patala loka and this kind of loka and that kind of loka, where people do suffer severe pain as a result of their misdeeds. Usually, like I remember one time, the third time I walked across Canada, myself and my support guy, we had to go to a garage to get our car fixed. And the fellow who was running the mechanical operation, he was a Christian, right? So he saw me in my robes, and he was kind of prejudiced. And we trusted him that he would fix our vehicle nicely. But kind of sarcastically, he leaned over the counter when we were just sitting there looking at some magazines in like a small lobby before, which is on the entrance side of the garage where repairs are done. And he says, "Okay, well, I guess you don't believe in Christ, so I guess you two guys go to where it's hot." So we have to laugh inside. But fortunately, there was a lady there hearing this. She had just walked in, and she didn't accept that kind of conclusion. She said, "Oh, come on, stop it." She took her hand and nudged him, by the arm. "Oh, stop that now. Don't say that to these people." So that's a usual idea of what is hell. A place where there's lots of fire and there's endless torture. Okay. I don't know if I ever spoke to this group, and I don't know if I'm going off track a little bit too much, but I had to laugh at some cartoons out of a newspaper. There was one person like a devil. He's looking down at people, and there are flames in the background, and the devil has horns. And he was holding in his hands a pizza, a pizza like in a regular standard pizza box. And he was looking down at the people, who were in hell. He said, whoever ordered this pizza, it's going right back to where it came from. So the idea here is that the depiction of hell, it's so bad that you can't even get a pizza. And here's another funny one. There was a lineup of people, they were in queue. And this is in hell. All residents of hell. And they're going to the coffee dispenser, right? And there's some, like satanic, some guards up there at the top looking down at everybody, making sure no one leaves hell. So one guy, he goes to the coffee dispenser, he takes a sip, and then he talks to the guy next to him in queue, and he says, here in hell, they got everything covered. Even the coffee's cold. So I'm just talking about strange and funny renditions of what people have about hell. But for a lot of people, hell is where there's a deprivation of pleasure, right? So let us look at hell in a more realistic way, okay? And I'm not saying that we don't have, Patala Loka and Sutala, and different kinds of hellish planets in this atmosphere. But all I'm saying, real hell means when you're separated from God, when you're separated from Krishna, and when you feel that I don't need anybody, and until you come to terms with, like, I guess I might need some people. I might need a guide. I need someone to inspire me. So when you try to act independently of Krishna, then you will live into a kind of a hell. And these days, atheism is very rampant. People don't believe in a God. I think a lot of those kind of folks, they'll die kind of lonely. But we believe in a personality of God whom we can communicate with. So there's two ways to look at hell, just to answer the question, in my opinion. And one way is you can give these pictorial descriptions that are described in the 5th canto of the Bhagavatam, or what Christians might describe as hell, with endless flames. And so that's one version of hell. Another version of hell is separation from the Lord, not engaging in devotional service, very much into self-service, and very much being influenced by lust and anger and greed. So that's one way to look at it. The more symbolic way, or you can look at hell in the very realistic way. Is that okay, Prabhu?
Very nice. Thank you, Maharaj.
Maharaj, I have a question. Like in our tradition, is the concept of hell is just based on karma or belief system also? Suppose someone don't believe in God.
Yeah.
So as per our tradition, like, will he go to hell, or it is okay? That depends on his karma. Like if he does good karma, he may end up.
There are some atheists who do good deeds. So you can't just put a paint roller into the tray and make a broad, wide, sweeping, say, gesture that all these people will go to hell. I mean, some people are very vindictive towards a concept of God and people who believe in God. So this is very unfortunate for them. If your question is, what will be the destiny of such people? Well, I would just say that the intricacies of karma are difficult to understand. They are complex, and it's really up to the Lord, and it's up to the demigods where people may go who prescribe to a different kind of philosophy, like atheism. Okay, I'm just gonna, draw a little comparison. Here you have someone who's an atheist, and then you have a theist. The atheist doesn't believe in a God, but is kind, is charitable, that good to his neighbor and so on like that. And then you also have the type of person who's a theist, but may not be nice to other individuals, firmly believing in God, the Supreme Personality, but demonstrates all kinds of hatred and self-centeredness. So such a, what do you think? What is Krishna looking for? Just you look at our behavior. And if one person who's an atheist is nice to other individuals who are all jiva souls, parts and parcels of God, don't you think that God will bless such persons? And just because somebody was born in India, or someone's got diksha by a guru or something like that, regardless of where you come in the world, just that doesn't allow you to enter into the Vaikuntha and to go through the gates, so to speak. So everything is analyzed case by case. That's my understanding. Every individual is treated like an individual, and it will be looked at, at personal time of judgment. So I guess the best scenario is be a theist and also be a good sevak. Be a good servant to others. Be a good servant to God, and be a good servant to all other people. So that's the way I would look at that and answer your question. So what do you think? What's the better scenario?
Yeah, thank you, Maharaj. Like, believe in God and do good karma.
Yes, that's right. That's the best combination. That is the best. Good. Does anybody else have any other thoughts or questions on what we've been talking about? Anybody? Okay. If not, then what we can possibly do is, do you ever go do several shlokas at one time, Kadamba?
We do, Maharaj. Yes, Maharaj. If you like, please. Which verse, Maharaj? Want to go to the next verse, or?
Yeah, it's up to you. We have 15 minutes left, and we could stay dwelling on this. I mean, okay. Here's something. Okay. Here's something funny that I heard about hell. What we can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay. Something I heard about hell, and it came a line that came from a stand-up comedian some years back. He said, when someone's already in hell, you can't tell them where to go. And when people use that phrase a lot of times, like go to hell, isn't it? But if we are already in living hell, then it's nothing new. And people really do live in decrepit conditions, especially when they don't have these 3 traits under control. They just live from one miserable circumstance to the next and to the next. And, as Vaishnavas, we have to feel sorry for them. Don't they believe in something? Isn't there a higher goal? Why do we have to resort to, angry gestures and destroying things, or being greedy and trying to acquiesce or accumulate more than you need, bite more than you can chew? Or like we live in a culture that's so greedy that they'll buy on credit, right? That's not a good policy, generally speaking, And who wants to owe lots of money after you've enjoyed the commodity, I mean, I think it's some element in everybody's life. You owe money on your car, you owe money on your house, you don't own anything. Anytime you rent, there's so many payments that need to be made all the time. So it's not nice to have that hanging over your head, that especially the lust and the anger and the greed. If we can get those, push them out of our life, then we have a better chance to, the road will be clear for us. I think all of us struggle with the lust and anger and greed, isn't it? We have a problem with this. And I don't find too many people who are content with what they have. And I meet people who are, they're really a gentle creature when they come to see at the temple, and especially when they meet a Swamiji. They're so gentle and so nice, but as soon as you leave, they start yelling at each other in the house, screaming, doing all kinds of unforgettable things that are of an unkind nature, isn't it? So, and as far as lust is concerned, well, you know, Hollywood puts out a lot of films about lust, and Bollywood they're maybe 2 years behind, so I was told. They'll take the same story and that America put out, and then they'll, you know, the names change, the skin color is different, the settings are different, but the storyline is the same, and is promoting lust, you know? And that's really what's the problem, you know. Our idols are lustful people who are failures at keeping together a nice family, isn't it? When I walked through America, I walked through the town, the hometown of Jimmy Stewart. And Jimmy Stewart was an outstanding actor in the film industry in the 50s and 40s, 50s, and 60s. And when I walked through his town and I learned that they have a museum in his honor, I also kind of just looked on my phone. I looked online, Jimmy Stewart, the actor, and I specifically asked about his marriage. So actually, he went to fight at the Second World War against the Nazis. So I think that was something that's in his favor. But when I read that he was married to the same wife for 45 years before he passed away, I just thought, oh God, he's my hero. He's a hero. And yet he could have, like some of his famous films, he's with some beautiful leading lady, you know, and they're embracing and things like that. And, you know, but he stuck by principles. So in many ways, he was quite saintly. So we're talking about the principle of lust, okay? Hard to deal with lust and anger and greed, but we have to have some inspiring people that we look at in our lives that will lead the way and encourage us to the point where we won't be taken by these three enemies. They're called enemies. Yeah. Okay. So anyways, watch those gates. Stay away from the gates. If the gates are closed, good. But if the gate is open, just walk away. We're being tested all the time, isn't it? We're being tested by the influence of Maya. And you can't really blame Maya. You have to blame yourself for losing it, for letting your senses control you. There was a famous phrase in the 60s by another stand-up comedian. He said, "The devil made me do it." Well, don't let the devil control your life. No, we don't need that. We don't need that. Okay, so Hare Krishna. Anything else? Otherwise, we can go for some takeaways. We do have 10 minutes left, so what do you think, Kadamba?
Maharaj, please, Maharaj, takeaways.
Okay, let's do some takeaway. And I'm not talking about takeouts or takeaways with, you know, pizza box. We're just talking about what did you learn today? What was there that inspired you somewhat, you know, by hearing from myself or Prabhupada's purport, or from any of what you heard from each other. Yes, please. Kadamba, do you want to conduct the takeaway session?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj. Maharaj, I personally liked, how you brought this aspects in a very accommodative way, Maharaj. You started about, how Prabhupada was accommodative. He did not discriminate anyone. He gave love profusely without discrimination. Doesn't matter whatever, section they were, or whatever gender they were, whatever their belief system, even, their ways of life. If they were too much into sense gratification, but Prabhupada was very accommodative and he did not discriminate. That was really inspiring, Maharaj.
Yes, we understand that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was also very much open to all and very inclusive. There were the Jagais and Madhais. There were the Sanatan, the Rupa and Sanatan Goswami. They had different names, of course, before they got those spiritual names. Dabir Kas and Sakar Malik. They worked for a government. They were intelligent men. And the Lord attracted such people. And he also attracted people who came from the lower rungs of society. He was just accommodating to everybody. That's the word you use, accommodating. I'm going to put the phone back in the box. I've been holding it the phone in my hand for the last 50 minutes, and it's getting sore. Yes. Thank you, Prabhu, for sharing that. Anybody else?
I think, Maharaj, I learned so much about this gate to the hell and not to see, even if it's open, not to peek in to see what's going on. Thank you.
It's not worth it.
Not worth it. I love that.
Let's
Better get away from that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? We'd like to hear from everyone. Okay?
Yeah, Maharaj, I really understood by your example of this stand-up comedian. One is that you are responsible for your own deeds, like whatever you're doing, you are responsible. And second was like, you may be living in hell, even though you are living here.
Mm-hmm.
And third one was this, as you mentioned, that don't discriminate, don't judge others, like we shouldn't judge. And fifth one, just believe in God and do good karma. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We mentioned a couple of times about judging people, and we have to be really careful about that, right? Like if somebody's got a certain sexual orientation, if they have got lots of bhakti, we want to encourage the bhakti, not the other part of their life, right? Yeah, we have to be very careful about that these days. Yeah, to be judging people, it's very easy to do that. I remember in the early days of the movement, most of the kids that joined in the U.S. and Canada, it was mostly we were all coming from middle class background. Maybe some universities, definitely high school levels. And we were most of us were Caucasians, And then a few immigrants came in. Like when I was a kid growing up in a place like Windsor, you'd never see a brown person. I never saw a brown person in my life. When I was down there, we saw some black folks. They were left from the slave days, but a brown person, no. The only first brown person I ever saw was Mr. Budra, who came from Trinidad. And he was our math teacher in high school, And, there was still a lot of prejudices at that time in the 60s. But that, that generation, the beat generation, the hippie generation, one good thing is they were welcoming to everybody. They weren't prejudiced, So that was a good thing. Whereas our parents were more conservative. They were quick to judge. Oh, he's a black person. He probably steals, Or that's a brown person. Oh, they come from India where they worship snakes and charmers and worship cows and let the cows eat all their food. And I mean, India was poor at a time, right? So that's the way the media projects it. So there's strong attitudes like that. And so somehow or other we have to drop these bodily identities, these what Prabhupada calls designations, and see the spirit behind the individual, go beyond the skin color, isn't it? But obviously, if someone shows bad behavior, regardless of the race they come from, then, you might keep a little bit of a distance, and maybe give them some prasadam and they'll warm up to Krishna eventually. Anything else? We've got a few more people there that haven't had a chance to say anything yet. Savita?
I just wanted to kind of go off of what others have said and mention that I really like that how you talked about Srila Prabhupada accepting people of all races, all colors, all sexualities and everything. I think it's always been such a kind of unspoken confusion in the ISKCON community about, well, should we accept people that are, of different orientations or identities that have different genders or, even transsexual people. And so to hear you say that Srila Prabhupada accepted them and focused on their spirit and their soul rather than their bodily identity is so amazing to hear, because there's so many people that I know personally that have been ostracized by their own religion and they've turned agnostic or atheist because of that. And to be able to reach out to them and say, well, Krishna doesn't discriminate. I think that was like really nice to hear. And I really like that point. Thank you so much, Maharaj.
No, thank you. Thank you. I mean, it's a little bit of a given, like people who may come in great numbers from some different nationalities, they tend to huddle together. That's always going to be there to some degree. If you have, say, some African, Canadians or Americans coming to one of our events, they're probably going to most likely stick it out together with each other. Or if there's a couple of gay people, they'll probably communicate more with gay people. But whatever, within the umbrella of ISKCON, but what we have to be mature about is to say everyone should be given a chance. And and our drive, our goal is to not think so much about the body, but to become a lover of Krishna. That's the projection. That's the thrust, to love Krishna. We all should become lovers of Krishna. It's there, but it's lying dormant. And by the way, Krishna is black, Krishna is white as Balaram, Krishna is golden as Subhadra. So we should just all go to the Rath Yatra, the nearest one, and just say, hey, this is for all people. At least when it comes to colors. Yes. All right, somebody else? Well, Kadamba, we're at that point of, it's 9 o'clock for me.
Yes, Maharaj.
It's 12 o'clock for you.
Yes,
and
Maharaj.
you all have to have your sambar, idli sambar.
Yes,
or,
Maharaj.
or your roti. Your sabji. Oh, everyone's going to call me.
It's usually our breakfast, Maharaj.
Maharaj, we cannot hear you, Maharaj.
Sorry.
No problem, Maharaj.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Maharaj. Now we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, somebody called in. Yeah, so, but I guess that's it. We should terminate from here. Wouldn't you say?
Maharaj, voice is not that clear, Maharaj, again.
Okay, I'm not sure how to fix the problem.
Maharaj, now again,
But
it's... Yes, please tell me,
I
Maharaj.
think we'll see you the next time through. All right.
Okay.
Yes, Maharaj.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We can, you and I can talk about the other issues if you like sometime.
Thank you.
Soon. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Thank you so much.
Hare,
Yes.
Very grateful to you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, devotees. So happy to be with all of you. So we'll come back again next week. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Please take care.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare